What up? Welcome back, everyone, to the Crisscross Corner, where I, Chris Canty, share with you what's going on in the world. Detroit is my hometown, so I like to put more of an emphasis on the city itself. Uh, when talking about these other trending topics around the world. Um, of course, I'm going to make you guys aware of what's going on. Later in the series, I will have my new co-host, Mark Simpson, on the show. Me and him will be doing more episodes from here on out after this one. But on today's episode, I will be giving you a quick Cliff Note background on the inequalities in urban planning around the country, particularly historical ones back in the day, and how they have shaped cities today. Also, please listen and support the podcast on the Anchor app. Your support helps me pay talent, buy equipment for better quality, and most importantly, it allows me at Crisscross Studios the time to focus on giving you the best content I can. I guarantee you'll get the most out of every episode, and you'll get more than what you bargained for. Your support is greatly appreciated. Also, if you have a topic for my top 10 list at the end of each show, you can DM me on Instagram at _KRIS_CROSS_. And I will do my best to get your topic on the show. Now we're going to go to my best and favorite segment of the show. I'm going to do What You Do in Detroit. We're going to talk about 5 things that are going on in Detroit this week. I'm going to stick to more middle to more good stories and excluding the bad stuff that's going around in the city, because we know what's going on in the city. Of course, people are losing their minds, drive-by shootings on the freeway, as I've said in other episodes, shootings at Coney Islands, other stuff. We have drag racing, people dying from that because cars are hitting the people. But we're not going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about some other stuff. We're going to talk about the Detroit Lions activate wide receiver Kenny Golladay and quarterback Matthew Stafford from the COVID-19 list. First of all, I didn't even know they were on the COVID-19 list. Second of all, if this season goes on and the Detroit Lions don't do anything, I don't even know if they're going to have fans this year. I think they said that they are going to have fans, but they're going to have like strict social distancing rules, which is crazy to me, because the NBA has a bubble. NHL's coming back for the playoffs. I don't know if they're going to have fans. MLB came back without fans. However, the players are getting a lot of there's a lot of positive cases with the players, and I forgot we had the other leagues, but it's a weird time for sports right now. That's all I gotta say. But of course, our wide receiver Kenny Golladay is back, and our starting quarterback, which we're paying millions of dollars for, Matthew Stafford, is back, and I'm happy. Go Detroit! Let's get a Super Bowl. Next, we have the Detroit casinos, all 3 casinos. That would be MGM Grand on the west side of downtown. We have Greektown Casino, which is on the east side of downtown. And we have Motor City Casino, which is west of Midtown. They are opening this week, and I believe we're going to be in for another wave of coronavirus cases, because people are going to be touching slot machines, cards, money, drinks, food, chairs, tables. Like, I don't understand why people are. I understand because people need to be paid and people need their jobs back. and money is a huge issue, the bottom line. But the casinos are a big chunk of Detroit's money. Believe it or not, like it or hate it, it is a huge chunk of Detroit's money. And bringing them back will, give Detroit a better cushion. But these cases are going to rise. So we have sports. Sports are going to rise, and we have casinos bringing people back, which means more numbers are going to happen. And it doesn't stop there, folks. The Oakland County Republicans plan to have their own MAGA cruise on Woodward. Okay, first of all, the Dream Cruise was canceled. The Dream Cruise was canceled. So right-wing people, I'm not going to say their names because I know a few, they say we're going to have our own Dream Cruise. We're going to do our own cruise down Woodward. We're not going to. No one's going to stop us. Let's make America great again. They're going to have a Make America Great Again cruise. That's what MAGA stands for, if you guys don't know. I mean, as long as they stay safe, social distance, and don't do anything else, I mean, you can have the cruise. I'm not mad at that, but I mean, I guess this is like a final stretch thing for getting people to vote for number 45, I guess. But anyway, everything is about COVID-19 because our next story is about U of M. So U of M put out a letter and a statement that said U of M students must have 14 days of enhanced social distancing before returning to campus. That's not going to happen. Even if they have 14 days of enhanced social distancing, that doesn't mean they don't have the virus. Like, they're going to come, some people might come back and get the virus instantly. Or some, like, they might have it, but they won't have symptoms because that's what we've been told that it's known to do. So why bring the kids back to school? That's a good question. I put this on the Crisscross Corner Facebook page, which you can join right now. It's free. And if you're on Facebook, just come on the page and chat a while. I put the question up with the Magic School Bus with Miss Frizzle. Should kids come back to school? And that includes all kids from like kindergarten all the way through like grad school, PhD. Should we all come back to in-class, in-person schooling? I don't think so. Because obviously the United States did not do a good job at stopping this virus, the spread of the virus, because you can't stop a virus, but stopping the spread of the virus. I don't think we did a good job. And they want kids to go back to school. They want casinos to open up. They want beaches to open up. And they want the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, MLB to come back with fans. I mean, look at other countries that have stopped the spread. Like New Zealand, I think the other day only had like 2 cases come. And they're back to normal, quote unquote normal, because COVID-19 messed up the whole world. But these countries did what they had to do to stop this spread of the virus. And then they're back to playing sports. They're back to walking around, high-fiving everybody, hugs, breathing on everybody. Well, United States was like, nah, I don't want the government telling me what to do. And then you went outside, you coughed on somebody because you didn't think you had the virus, but you did. But you did. Gave it to someone else whose immune system wasn't good. Now they're dead. Or their immune system is compromised permanently due to your negligence. Now we have a negligent president worried about TikTok, worried about getting his friends out of prison, worried about his golf course in Florida, while we have Black Lives Matter protests, police brutality protests, gentrification protests, unemployment protests going on, and you're over here having a good time protesting TikTok during all of this, and you have an election coming up in 2 months. Fam, we gotta do something about this, man. Ladies and gentlemen, we need you guys to vote. I don't care who you vote for, red or blue, but get out and vote. Your vote matters, especially this time, because we don't know what this man is capable of in these next 4 years if he's reelected. Heck, we're not even sure what Biden's capable of, but hey, at least Biden is experienced. Donald Trump is not even experiencing anything. Plus, he's over 70, so he needs to get out of there. Biden is too, for all the naysayers. But he has a group of people, educated people, to help him make the best decisions. Donald Trump and the Republican Party is... I'm not even going to say the Republican Party. I'm going to say Donald Trump, because Donald Trump is not a Republican. I have a lot of Republican candidates I agreed with. However, in 2016, they did not fit my mold, so I did not vote Republican. I voted Democratic for Hillary Clinton. This man took over the entire Republican candidacy. And the people who vote Republican were like, oh, shoot, I don't want to vote blue, so I might as well vote red. And here we are, 2020. Donald Trump's in office. Now we're stuck. Goodness gracious. But moving on to great news, amazing news. J. Cole is trying to get into the NBA. And guess what team had offered him his first contractual tryout? Oh boy, we got the Detroit Pistons offering J. Cole his first NBA tryout. This is going to be great. We can have J. Cole and LaMelo. And we got, let me look at my wall. We have Langston Galloway, Sekou Doumbouya, Tony Snell, Bruce Brown, Sri Mahailu, Bruce Brown, D. Rose, and Blake. It's going to be a great year next year, guys. It's going to be amazing. So that's all we got for What You Do in Detroit. You can follow the What You Do in Detroit on Instagram. Just type in What You Do in Detroit, WYD Detroit, and look at all of my pictures of Detroit. I'm going to try to post more pictures on that Instagram probably in the next few weeks, because I will be taking more pictures with my new cameras. If you want to see more stuff on What You Do in Detroit, just message the Instagram, and I will probably take pictures of those places where you want me to go to, because I love to travel. Let's get into the topic at hand. We have systemic racism in urban planning. And this segment is going to be quickly and briefly addressing what's going on in urban planning today. And it all has to do with what has happened in previous years of planning. So we're going to talk about the historical dark side of urban planning. Now, this is coming from a list made from one of my people that I follow. His name is Danny Cruz. On Instagram, his name is at Daniel Ainge Cruz, DANIELANGCRUZ on Instagram. He made these little booklets that he makes, and he did one on systemic racism in urban planning. So he did these lists, and I was like, wow, this is actually hitting a point. So I just want to talk about it. I want to spread the word to you guys on the podcast. The first thing he talked about in this list to introduce racism in urban planning was highways. And I've talked about this before on the Sundown Towns episode, that highways were designed to connect city centers with suburbs. Of course, that's obviously true. Sadly, highways connected the two by cutting across Black and people of color communities. Yes, they did. In the process, entire low-income communities were destroyed in the name of urban renewal slash blight removal. And we have a few of these examples, of course, in Detroit. Chicago is one, with the Dan Ryan going through many communities, Black communities in general. We have this in Los Angeles as well, through South Central. We have this in Seattle. Yes, we do. Dallas, Houston, Nashville, St. Louis, and the biggest one that I love talking about because it's like it could spark so many conversations is New York City with the Cross Bronx Expressway up in the Bronx and Upper Manhattan, which inadvertently started the hip hop movement. And I will get to that in a later episode with Mark Simpson because he loves hip hop. But yeah, highways were designed to bring people from the suburbs to the cities. Well, back in the day, mostly people in the suburbs were white, and white people worked in the city, so they just had to get there quickly and safely, quote unquote. But sadly, the interstates and the state highways bulldozed through communities that the city felt that they were, blighted, deteriorating. And most of those times they were full of Black and people of color. So just remember that. Number 2, we have zoning. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I am an urban planner. I work for a firm out in Ann Arbor, planning consulting group, and we do a lot of things with zoning. Now, governments use zoning laws to decide how parcels of land can be used. So we have, like residential, commercial, agricultural, all those other industrial. So land is used properly and environmentally friendly. So you don't want a residential house being next to Marathon. Oh wait, that happens in Detroit. We're gonna get to that in a few seconds. But low-income neighborhoods often play host to unhealthy or dangerous land use compared to higher-income neighborhoods. So let's take the Delray neighborhood in Detroit. Delray, Carbon Works, Southwest Detroit, all in that area. All of that is next to Marathon, a huge coke place where they, dig up all the stuff. And all the air on a good day, on a good breezy day, all the air goes over to those neighborhoods. So all you feel is everything you smell over there. You smell the sulfur. They also have a huge dump over there as well. So you have sulfur. You have people's garbage over there. You even have, of course, you have cars because the Fort Rouge plant is down there too. So you have exhaust. Then you have a huge freeway, which bringing all the people from downriver to downtown. So you have noise pollution as well. You have air, noise. That's a lot. And that doesn't just happen here in Detroit. We have that happen in South Chicago. All right. We have that in Cleveland, LA, New York, of course, Atlanta, and Miami. So watch out, guys. Go look at your local zoning, your zoning ordinance, and check out, where all these businesses and where all these zoning ordinance, where all the zonings are, in your community, so you can actually see what's actually going on. Landfills, warehouses, and scrap yards are commonly found in low-income communities, and that is true. That is very true. Number 3, we have housing. Now, ladies and gentlemen, housing is a huge, 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 huge topic to talk about when talking about the history of this country and why we are talking about equality nowadays with Black Lives Matter, police brutality, and just playing out fairness for everybody. Now, fairness wasn't huge back in the day. After World War II, the Federal Housing Administration, or the FHA, mapped out neighborhoods so banks knew who to give mortgage loans to and who to avoid. Well, we know who they wanted to avoid. Communities were always seen as a risk and were marked in red. We still see the effects of redlining today. So, redlining, of course, of course, they would be like, okay, this area is bad, so we're not gonna sell here. This area is not bad, so we're not gonna sell over here. And it shows on so many city maps where good housing is and where bad housing is. Detroit is a huge example of that. Detroit, Chicago, Milwaukee, Cleveland, Minneapolis, Boston is a huge one. Hartford, Connecticut, Charlotte's huge for this. Atlanta, and of course, LA. All right. The FHA was created as a result of the Housing Act of 1934. It was meant to create jobs and affordable homes in light of the Great Depression, which nobody had jobs and nobody was working. In reality, it reinforced generational segregation because make good houses in good areas, make bad houses, and then don't keep them up in other areas and give them to Black or people of color, then those areas are not seen as amazing. They don't seem desirable at all. Less desirable means less money. Less money means less opportunity. Less opportunity means, whoops. That's all it means. You get the picture. Then we went to subsidized suburbs. Of course, we know suburbs to cities, like we said, in the freeways, mostly for people. To make homeownership more accessible for white people, the FHA directed funds into suburbs as long as developers agreed not to rent or sell to Black people. This is a federal policy, guys, back in the early 20th century. This only perpetuated the generational wealth gap we see today. And we also had restrictive covenants. So the FHA initiated racial covenants, which outlined certain obligation property owners must assume, like white-only clauses. So community community or associations were created in the suburbs to reinforce this practice, which made evictions of Black families easier. So they didn't want the Black families in their community. So they were like, okay, this is what we got to do to keep them out. Or if they were already there, they had easier ways to get them out based on a covenant or a law or an ordinance. It's crazy times back in the days, guys. Really crazy. Then, of course, we're going to talk about the all of this culminated because, of course, the 50s and the 60s happened. We all revolted. We revolutionized. We had the Civil Rights Act. We had the Fair Housing Act. All right. So the Fair Housing Act of I think it was 1968, made violence against housing integration a federal crime. But attacks continued for decades with very few prosecutions. In 1985 through 1986, less than a quarter of the incidents resulted in legal proceedings. This is still prevalent today in 2020. When a Black family, middle class, upper class, Black family moves into a upper class white community, they're not really treated or seen as a good thing, like back in the day, like in the 30s and 40s and 50s when Black families moved to Detroit, Chicago. All the white people left in huge droves, called white flight. And as everybody gets more money, as Black people get more money, they move into better neighborhoods. And those people who are already in those neighborhoods keep moving out and out and out and out. So it's making these concentric circles of wealth and poor people. Well, the poor people are still in the middle, and elites are still out. And some of these circles are getting so big, like LA, Detroit, Dallas, Houston, Charlotte, Atlanta, that people are now driving 2 hours to work, 1 hour to work just to have a safe neighborhood. That's quote unquote safe neighborhood. I'm not saying that white communities are safe, but quote unquote safer neighborhood. That's just ridiculous. But that's all about housing. Go check out historical housing policies against Black people or people of color. Number 4, and this is the final one we're going to talk about today: public transit and micromobility. Yes, this is a huge topic now. Buses and subway routes can be sparse and or deteriorated, making movement within a city difficult. All right. City buses, depending on which city you're in, are kind of, good, depending on the staff, the equipment, and the software used to make the thing run. But some cities, man, or some regional transit authorities need a lot more work, because it is not uncommon for people to walk over a mile to the nearest stop or wait for a bus or subway with infrequent headways. That's ridiculous, guys. Also, Black and people of color neighborhoods are less likely to have protected bike lanes, even though bicycling is just as popular in Black communities as white communities. I see this on Jefferson Avenue, going towards Belle Isle. Like, that is some of the most. First of all, they put the bike lanes down and new lines down before they repave the streets. Like, there's potholes everywhere. Cars keep dodging them, going into the bike lane. Not very safe. However, you can go down. I think it's I don't know if it's St. John or I forgot the road, but there's a nice protected bike lane on those streets, but not on the main streets. That's what I don't get here in Detroit. But I've seen other cities like San Francisco, LA, Portland, Chicago even have protected and designated bike lanes for cyclists and people who don't want to walk, or scooters. But yeah, we got to do much better. Some people don't like buses or subways, mainly buses, because subways is a whole different animal when it comes to city budgets and stuff. But buses, like a huge bus system, you see them mostly in lower to middle class communities, who most people don't have a car or access to a personal vehicle. Now, with the advent of Uber and Lyft, I get it. However, during a pandemic, you don't want to risk your life, over a bus, But I understand but you got to do what you got to do. And most of these communities, I know Macomb County has a whole bus system, SMART. Oakland County, majority of the communities have SMART, the bus system over there. But I think we have West Bloomfield Hills, or we have Livonia in Wayne County, right outside Detroit, who don't want SMART because they don't want, certain people in their neighborhoods. It's okay. We understand what you mean. Oh, we know. We know exactly what you're talking about. And it's not a today problem. It's a historical problem. It's definitely a today problem. And it's going to be a future problem if you don't understand your history. I understand every city doesn't want buses because of the aesthetic it brings, but people need to get to work. Think about that the next time you're at the voting booth and you have a vote that says yes or no for buses. or public transit or regional transit. Do your research, folks. It might be you that doesn't have a car next week and need to take the bus to work. Just saying. And now we're going to move on to my top 10 worst planned cities. Now we're talking about planning. I'm going to talk about my worst planned cities. There was a question from one of my listeners in Chicago who was doing a program, a planning class actually in her, I think it was urban studies program. She asked me why. This is a great question. Why do cities on the East Coast have better public transit than cities on the West Coast? And I was like, that is a really great question. And I love to answer this question because if you look at cities on the East Coast, just on the East Coast, like Upper East Coast, not including the South, because that's not relevant. You look at the East Coast, cities like Boston, cities like New York City, Providence, Hartford, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C. You see that they're all built pretty much the same because they were all built by, the Europeans that came in the 1500s, 1600s, 1700s, 1800s. So they came over with the same, same stuff they do over in London, in Germany, in Netherlands. They're all jam-packed, packed in a little, like sardine can. So that's what their cities look like. Most of the cities on the East Coast, of course, back in the 1800s, 1700s, you didn't have a lot of cars or trains, a lot of them. So most of the cities and streets were built for horses and people. So of course, you look at New York City, you have, small little, alleyways, small streets, everything, jam-packed in one area. And of course, they spread out the area. It's now called New York City, Philadelphia, Hartford, Boston, all those cities. And some of the cities, like as the colonies, they spread it west. You had cities like Cleveland, Detroit, St. Louis, Pittsburgh. They also had the same design because they're just the same Europeans that moved over, mostly the French and the Germans. Of course, Detroit looks like this. Of course, you look at a map of Detroit, you see the downtown area or where the place where the city was originally settled. They have these small alleyways, which, downtown is made of a lot of alleyways, a lot of small streets, a lot of one-way streets. And it's pretty much like, packed in like sardines, like the European cities of the East, like New York City and Philadelphia. As we go in history, or more to present day, you see more of the present day stuff. Like you have the mile markers, you have the more of a grid pattern going out from the old style of making cities. So that's why you see, I believe in Detroit, I believe it's Livernois. That's when it goes from like the wheel and spoke or spoke and hub. I forgot what it was called. Spoke and hub system to more of a grid pattern at Livernois. Chicago also has this. New York has it. Just look at a map of these cities on Google. It'll amaze you. And the second part of her question was, why do the western parts look like the way they do? Of course, the western cities were created later, way later, after other things have been proven, and they worked back in the day. Now it seems that a lot of these cities they shouldn't have not did it, but they needed to incorporate other things like public transit, huge mass transportation projects, like New York, they had the subway. Detroit, pretty much we had the automobile, so pretty much, they didn't want public transit. Same thing happened with LA. LA deserves a great mass transit, public transit system. because that city is so huge. So huge. But, things happen. Automobile lobbyists and all that stuff took it away. They still have a subway system, but it's like, I'm not getting on it. They have a light rail system. And all that stuff. Chicago, I mean, they have the commuter rails, they have subways, they have the Skyway, they have freeways. It's pretty much cool. Elevated trains. It's a pretty nice city. So if I would have like a city that does like a prime example of great mass transit, it would have to be Chicago. But effective mass transit, I would have to choose New York City just because of their history and what they had to do with all those people. But yeah, that's my answer. Eastern cities were made by like straight up like first generation Europeans, so they built the cities the way that they built the cities back in Europe. As they moved out west, generations after, they took a hold of the grid patterns and they made huge cities with the grids. A huge example of the grid making an unrelentless effort to make things work. Just digging through the city, it would have to be San Francisco. You make a grid. First of all, the city is hilly as hell, mountainous, and has hella earthquakes. Then you're gonna put a grid on that, not even like taking like shape of the land and the terrain. That's why you have all these huge hills with these straight streets. Yeah, one day I'll go back out there, but not now because of the coronavirus. Go ahead now. But I hope I answer your question. But we're gonna go on to the top 10 list because this top 10 list might make some planners mad. But these are my top 10 worst planned cities. Now I've been to most of these cities, and I was impressed. Some of them was not impressed, but I'll try to do my best to make this a good experience for everybody. Some of these cities I'll probably never go to because I don't have the desire to go to, but I'll get to those cities as we go. So number 10, we have Dallas, Texas. We have Big D. Not a big fan of Dallas. Just saying. Of course, all their sports teams, I hate them. Dallas Cowboys, they can suck it. What was it? The Dallas, I forgot what the Dallas teams were. Dallas Mavericks, they were lucky in 2011. We have the Dallas Stars, suck it. I think they have a WNBA team, which was the Detroit team. I'm going to put that out there right now. All their championships were won in Detroit as the Detroit Shock. Bring them back. They should bring them back. I go to all the games. I go to all the Pistons games, so I should go to all the Shock games. But what they play at LCA? Because LCA, I mean, you have WNBA, NHL in the same arena. Can you put WNBA as well in there to make? I mean, I don't know. I don't know the schedule, issues, but if they can make it work, they can make it work. All right, we got number 9. We have New Orleans. These are one of the cities that I don't really care about because I just don't care. But 2005 was a bad time for them. Actually, it's still a bad time for them right now in 2020 because a lot of areas are still deteriorated from the effects of Hurricane Katrina. The city sits well below sea level, so that's probably why everything flooded. But outside the huge tourist areas, the city is pretty much a deteriorated city. And I don't mean to talk bad about New Orleans, but I know what I know. And I seen what I seen. I said the same thing about Detroit. There's some areas you want to go to, and there's some areas where you don't want to go to. And that's all I got to say about that. Orlando, Florida, number 8. Horrible. Horrible, horrible, horrible. That's all I got to say. Number 7, we have DC. Now, let me tell you about DC. I'm going to sit back and relax about this. Washington, D.C. has some of the worst traffic in the world. People might say Los Angeles, New York, Atlanta, Chicago, Detroit. No, I ain't got nothing on D.C. D.C. traffic made me mad. We're living like 20 minutes away from the Capitol building. I put the directions in to go from our place to like right at the walls, which is like good 20, 25 minutes. Why did this thing say 55 minutes? My morning was ruined. Just ruined. And plus, you have all the construction. The president want to walk outside. That means you got to shut down streets. I mean, come on, guys. Come on. Hate DC. Number 6, we have Seattle, Washington. I want to visit Seattle just for a Seahawks game. I hear they're getting rid of a lot of freeways in Seattle to make way for, better green cities, more sustainable. But I mean, I don't think it was planned right. Plus, they're getting the Seattle Kraken, the new NHL expansion team. I believe they're coming next year, next hockey season. So we should be actually next after this one because we're still in this one. But I can't wait to see it. Maybe they'll go straight to the Stanley Cup like Vegas did in their first year. That is to be seen. So number 5, we have Pittsburgh. Very great city. I liked it when I visited. Didn't like driving up those hills to get to Mount Washington. That was pretty scary. But other than that, it's pretty great. The infrastructure needs some work. I saw a lot of broken bridges, a lot of potholes. Other than that, Pittsburgh was all right. Atlanta, number 4. A lot of these cities have similarities. We have, I think, Dallas. Actually, all of them have actually, besides Seattle. Besides Seattle and Pittsburgh. So Dallas, New Orleans, Orlando, D.C., and Atlanta, they all have beltways. Now, beltways are freeways to go around the city. Some of them have like one beltway. Some of them have 2, like Atlanta does. Some have 3. I believe Houston has 3. I have to go back and see on the map. But Atlanta, a lot of traffic. The planning is okay. It's okay. That's all I have to say because they're building a lot of bigger establishments and developments outside the city, which is what most of the northern cities did back in the 80s and 90s. And now all of them are moving back down to the city. So it might happen in Atlanta, Charlotte, Houston in future years to come. But that's all I got to say about Atlanta. Number 3, we have Boston. Horrible planning. They did get rid of the freeway and make it to like this underground thing with a park over it. That was pretty nice. But other than that, horrible planning. Number 2, Houston, Texas. Now, ladies and gentlemen, Houston has no zoning ordinance, no zoning laws. So there could be a skyscraper next to your house tomorrow, and it would be approved. Just saying. Horrible planned city, traffic everywhere, 3 belt lines, decayed freeways, 26 lanes across. It's too much, y'all. Way too much. It was a nice city to visit. But when you look at all the, you know, logistics and everything to keep that city together, oh my God. Whew. And finally, we have number 1. Everybody knows this. I'm about to say this city. Since I say Houston at number 2, you already know LA is going to be number 1. You just know it. Of course, LA has horrible planning. I was definitely in the ghetto when I was in LA when I came in. And I was like, is that the Hollywood sign? Oh, that's cool. Oh, that's a pit bull and a crip. Get out of here. But yeah, you have, socioeconomics are definitely a factor in LA. It's not a game out there. Freeways everywhere. Freeways turn to the poor communities. The richer communities are way out. Some of them have like their communities in the actual city of LA, like Beverly Hills, Homewood Hills, Culver City, Calabasas, Encino. But the rest of the rich people, they're not in LA. They're way out, like Newport Beach. All right, Missing Viejo. So yeah. So ladies and gentlemen, just go look at your map, see how your cities are planned, look at the history, look at what freeways, look at what they're named after, if they were bad or good. You know what I mean? Just actually look at what's around you during this time to see how your city is shaped up. To request topics for my top 10 lists, please just DM me on Instagram, like I said, at _KRIS_CROSS_ or contact me on Facebook, Kris Canty. Your list might make the podcast. And that has been another edition of the Crisscross Corner. Subscribe to Crisscross Studios on YouTube to watch the live show. Tell your friends and family about the podcast. Leave a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts and other podcast platforms like Spotify and Google Podcasts. Catch us, me and Mark Simpson, next week for an episode of the Crisscross Corner. Please stay safe, social distance, and be to each other.